Chovy is without a doubt the king of farming in all of League of Legends. Time and time again, he's out farming every single player he goes up against, regardless of what he's playing or what matchup he's in. Absurd numbers like 250 CS at 20 minutes are commonplace for him in competitive play, and a big reason why he's regarded as one of, if not the best mid laners in the world. Of course, we don't play in the LCK, but that doesn't mean that we can't learn from Chovy, since he gets insane CS numbers regularly, even in solo queue, where a ton of randomness can and does occur. This won't be a guide about being an AFK farmer who never fights or helps his team. Chovy's goal in solo queue is to limit test, and he definitely runs it down a lot during his games. And yet, he can have 5 deaths and he'll have more CS than everyone in the game. He's in no way AFK in a side lane the whole game doing nothing. He's constantly either grouping with his team or looking for fights while easily maintaining 10 CS per minute. There's no way we can teach you how to be this good at League of Legends, but we can share some of the easy tips to apply that Chovy utilizes all the time in order to get your CS numbers up significantly. So let's get into it. First though, here's our question of the day. What's your most hated meta champion? Mine is definitely Qiyana. Ever since that one trick demolished Faker in a solo queue game, I've seen her so much more than before. There's nothing more frustrating than getting rooted, into wall stunned, into an execute that one-shots you from 100% HP. It feels like every little mistake is a death sentence against this champ. But what do you guys hate playing against? What nerfs are you hoping for? Let us know in the comments below, as we find it very interesting to know what everyone hates playing against in their games. Anyway, moving on. When it comes to CSing, the first thing to talk about is just scoring last hits. Unfortunately, this is something you have to practice for yourself. Each champion is unique with their auto animations, attack speeds, spell damage, etc. It's on you to learn how to farm as efficiently as possible on each unique character that you play in every matchup you go up against. This is not easy, and part of the reason why Chovy is so successful. That being said, there are some tips that we can cover that Chovy always applies, which can help you come out with a bit more CS during the lane, regardless of what you're playing or your mastery on that champion. First up is something very basic, but if you're not doing it, you'll immediately increase how many last hits you score. When possible, you should simply try to kill the enemy caster minions before all the enemy melee minions die. Chovy does this quite frequently, as any good mid laner should. By killing the caster minions first, you guarantee that you're going to get the last hits on all of them, since your own minions are still hitting the enemy melees. It's not something that you should do all the time, but if you're not under pressure in any way, then we suggest doing so. Secondly, Chovy loves playing incredibly aggressive in lane. Now, most professional players do this, since solo queue is generally just a mode where they can limit test, but there is a neat advantage when it comes to CSing by playing very far up in the lane. If you're playing very in your opponent's face, near their tower, then the advantage that you gain is that you can begin killing the wave before it ever collides with your own. Just like the caster killing tip, it basically guarantees that you score every CS in the wave, since it will either only briefly touch your own wave or not get touched by it at all. This is just a really simple way of making sure that you don't miss any minions, since yours will never be in range to take them. Of course, there is also obviously a downside to doing this. By playing so aggressively, you're prone to getting ganked, right? Absolutely, but as we said, that's a risk Chovy is willing to take a lot of the time. He generally feels very comfortable outplaying and evading ganks. But even he's not perfect. Sometimes he makes mistakes and gets caught out. That being said, dying while you play aggressively is actually not that bad when it comes to keeping your farm up. We've touched on this before when talking about players like Caps, but notice that while he died, Chovy only missed a single wave to his tower. As he spawned, he managed to get back in time to catch the next one. By playing as aggressively as this, you'll never miss big chunks of minions, even when you do mess up and die. Despite that misplay, Chovy is still miles ahead of anyone in CS, since he's scoring every single last hit possible. As a quick reminder, if you want to improve fast and get the rank you've always wanted, then check out our hyper improvement system at SkillCapped.com. We have professional courses by top players, Smurf commentaries where a challenger player walks you through how to climb out of every rank from iron to diamond, and we upload tons of new, exclusive guides to our website every week. In fact, We're so confident that you'll improve using our system that if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a full refund, so there's no risk. What are you waiting for? Check out SkillCapped.com and get the rank that you've always wanted. Link in the description below. Alright, those previous tips are going to help you CS a bit more during the early lane, but when it comes to getting 10 CS per minute, your actions during the mid and late game matter a bit more than during the early laning phase. One of the immediate things that you want to do, which many of us know to do, is simply to take your own jungler's camps whenever possible. Of course, Chovy will have an inherent advantage over you when it comes to this. He's Chovy. Imagine flaming Chovy. Any jungler who says anything to him is going to get flamed back by the rest of his team. Imagine taking both the blue buff and Gromp in front of your jungler's face as they're pathing towards the area. Spam pinging will most definitely ensue a lot of the time if you're to try this. So that's definitely not how you take jungle camps from your jungler most of the time. You should just look for opportunities where your jungler is on the other side of the map, making a play and not pathing toward one of the camps near you. For example, if you see your jungler committing to a brush play in bottom, then they 100% don't care if you move on over to take their raptors. They'll be up again by the time that they get there anyway. It's very easy to find windows of opportunity to do this. In this particular game, as Chovy chases for a kill, his jungler isn't alive yet from the previous fight. It's fine to take every little camp you can find when your jungler isn't going to get them anyway. It's very unlikely that you get flamed doing it this way, unless your jungler's already tilted, which in that case, they were going to flame anyway. Okay, everything up until now is a basic of accelerating your farm, but there's some less obvious strategies that you'll want to incorporate into your macro to farm like Chovy. Let's introduce this following concept as a question. Imagine that there's 2 available plays for you to make on the map. In bot lane, your Aurelia is being shoved in by a Jax, whom you could rotate over to kill. You also happen to see that the enemy jungler seems to be power farming. They'll likely be making their way over to the red side jungle soon. You could potentially set up in a brush and kill them as they walk in. If the likelihood that both of these plays will work is around the same, then which one would you choose? Okay, so what Chovy tries to do very often is make choices where his aggressive plays are going to lead him to secure more sources of farm. We believe that the jungle play might be a little better in terms of getting you more CS. If you set up here and kill the enemy jungler, then afterwards, you're free to take their entire jungle for yourself, since you'll have direct access to it by being in the area already. If you were to go bottom to kill Jax, then you'll encounter an annoying problem. The Aurelia is likely going to want to keep pushing bottom. As the split pusher, she definitely might get upset if you stick around and try to take waves. Let's show you what we mean in a real game. During this Tristana match, Chovy was finishing pushing out his wave when he notices a skirmish going on in top. He makes his way there, taking the honey fruit on his path to restore some resources. He manages to get up there and clean up a kill in return for his Senna's life. Now, the point is that even if Senna lived, Chovy would have priority for this farm, since he'd likely easily steal all of it from Senna as she's so terrible at last hitting. Regardless of what happened here, there was an incoming source of farm for him to acquire. Therefore, he's both being proactive on the map while maintaining his CS. We see a similar situation a couple of minutes later. Renekton is playing very aggressively in bottom, so Chovy rotates over to kill him. Remember our example from before? In this case, it would have been fine for Chovy even if Senna lived. She's going to go toward middle anyway, as Tristana is obviously the champion who should stay down here split pushing. Regardless of the outcome, Chovy's rotation allowed him to both make a play and acquire a new source of farm. He picked up countless waves in bottom and the enemy tower, since he knew killing the enemy side laner would give him precious time to farm alone down here. Alright, our final tip for this guide is something Chovy is incredibly consistent with. He will almost always push out his side waves before joining his team whenever possible. This isn't a new concept, but perhaps a different way of looking at the situation. The problem a lot of people face is that they don't trust their teammates enough to not run it down while they push out a wave. It creates what we could call the solo queue tax. If you're always responding to every little thing going on and not trusting your team to fend for themselves, you're going to fall more and more behind in CS. Sometimes it's best to avoid paying your taxes in League of Legends. Most of the time, Chovy treats solo queue as if he has a competitive team. If he's able to, he will push out the side wave before rotating over to join a fight. Now you may say he can do this because he's in Korean Challenger solo queue. People are really smart there, I can't do that in my elo. But no, they're not. They're just as blind and dumb as your teammates most of the time. Look, as Chovy is finishing pushing out the wave, his own teammates are dying defending a tower that wasn't defendable in mid. He finally teleports in, and thankfully his Gnar lands a massive ultimate to turn the fight. Chovy scores some kills and manages to get some value out of his teleport. We chose this example to highlight something critical to the way that you view the game. As Chovy is pushing down here, we're not telling you that letting you risk your team losing the game is worth pushing a single wave. If the enemy team is forcing Baron randomly, then don't just sit bottom. You should be rotating over immediately. The better mindset is that it's actually your opponent's risk to ARAM it in mid. Think about what the enemy team is actually pressuring. In this case, they're just grouping to share a goal between 5 people in mid for a single tower. Yes, 30% of the time, their risk pays off and your own team runs straight into them. But 70% of the time, their gamble is really stupid and ineffective. That 70% chance that they don't score kills is really bad for the enemy team. Let's keep watching and see what Chovy does to get an idea why. After the fight, he manages to pick up a Scion kill, and if you look at the minimap, it's easy to tell that the top wave is slow pushing away from his team. That's bad, so he goes and fixes it, since he knows where the rest of the enemy team is, so his health pool isn't a risk at the moment. Very briefly, if you're not aware, what we mean by fixing waves is simply pushing it into your opponent's tower. That usually creates a bounce back slow push toward your side of the map, which earns more overall farm for you in the long run. His commitment to fixing waves over the randomness of solo queue is why he's so consistent at farming. Look at what he's set up here. Both the bot and top lane waves are pushing into his team. That's less farm for the enemy team and more for him and his teammates to pick up. That's why it's not worth the risk for the enemy team. In 70% of cases, they're falling drastically behind for a gamble that isn't worth taking, and Chovy exploits this to the max. Let's be real here. This guide won't get you remotely close to being at Chovy's level. He's maintaining 10 CS per minute and scoring multiple kills against the best players in the world consistently. That being said, he does this by refining these simple fundamentals to the max. Practice makes perfect, and if you ever want to be as good as that, then this guide is a great place to start. And remember, if you want to improve fast in general and get the rank that you've always wanted, then check out SkillCapped.com, link in the description below. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.